We had a caller, Billy in California, had a issue regarding prostate and swelling, and they're planning a TURP in 2 weeks, which is a transurethral prostatectomy. They gave him Bactrim for his infection. Billy, here's my suggestions that you do. Firstly, number one, you want a vascular sparing procedure if you're going to reduce the obstruction to the urinary tract. You do not want to do a regular TURP. Number two, Bactrim is useless in terms of getting through the biofilm to kill Staph aureus. You want to use Nutridyne 20 drops 4 times a day in water, and Allicin 1 capsule 4 times a day to 3 times a day. You can add also Silver 100. The important thing for the prostate is to take things like prostate flow, which reduce the prostate swelling. Then you want to take as well bladder op 1 soft gel twice a day, and Swedish flower pollen, which is a natural alpha-1 blocker to stop bladder spasm caused by the pressure of the prostate pressing the bladder wall. That's what the obstruction comes from. So I take the antipathogenics, the things that affect the motor activity of the bladder, and I would make sure you're seeing a urologist to get a we call vascular sparing procedure, so you don't lose the ability to have erections, or to control the trigone of your bladder and your urethral sphincters, internal sphincters or external sphincters, so you don't lose bladder control and end up having to wear a catheter forever. So you can call me after the show or drop me an email. I'll give you the specific suggestions. But it means you need to go back to your doctor and get a proper, see a surgeon who can do a vascular sparing procedure, number one. If they're going to do a procedure at all, you may be able to reduce the swelling simply by taking prostate flow, bladder up, and Swedish flower pollen, and then the antipathogenics to clear the Staph aureus infection, and you may not need to have the surgery done. So hopefully that will help.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So, Kyle, what I would recommend you do is drop me an email, send it to Dr. Bill Deagle, drbill, D-E-A-G-L-E, at hotmail.com, and I'll give you your suggestions and recommendations. By the way, if people want a full consult, I have a full consult form now available on the front of the page. There is a fee for that because I have to review all your medical records and other things. But when you have a quick and dirty question like this or want a quick protocol, there's no charge. I provide it to doctors and patients around the world free. So call out, send me an email after the show. We have Dr. Bob Dennis here. Dr. Bob's on every week, once or at least twice a week sometimes. And he's an amazing engineer scientist who's done work at NASA developing the micropulse. And I tell people, I love this machine. You can put it on and it'll turn off pain. It'll stimulate healing and regeneration. It's just a remarkable little portable machine, whether it's a sore back, over your heart if you're trying to regenerate your heart muscle, over your brain if you have an ECMO brain from a heart bypass machine or chemotherapy brain. If you're having problems with osteoporosis of your bone, you want to regenerate bone, besides VibraSlim and taking our bone generator, MyCell D3, Myco D2, and full vitamin K2, you want to be, for certain, putting a micropulse over those areas you're trying to heal or detox. So, Dr. Bob, tell us about the signal and the substance theory again, and explain to people how amazing this device is. Now under $400, if they get the Dr. Deagle, DR Deagle code, they get $30 off. It's under $400. You can't get a better deal than that, can you, for something that's going to turn off pain and heal you?
Well, I don't think you can get a better deal than that anywhere. That's my opinion. But, you're certainly welcome to look and see. Once you determine that that is the fact, then you can come back to the web page and think about making a purchase if you like. But let me tell you why it's as inexpensive as it is, and we'll talk a little bit about the substance and the signal. You can't do anything biologically without the right substance. If you need magnesium for something and you need it, for example, to bind to ATP to activate it, no magnesium, no way. It just doesn't work. You got to have the right substance. And that's true across biology. So that's sort of a basic requirement. You have to have it there. Now, once you have the right substances in place, you have to have the right signals so that you're doing the right things with those substances. And that's the basic theory that we've been discussing for the last several weeks. And it's not really a theory so much as common sense.
Right.
You can, it's not anything you have to test. It's just common sense. So what the ISIS PEMF device does is it is the purest form of the signal that cells use to talk to their neighbors to go into the growth, repair, and anti-inflammatory mode. And we started studying this in detail at NASA back in the late 1990s, and I've been working on it for about 20 years since then with private funding in my own laboratory and then laboratories distributed around the world, really, and private research laboratories as well. And So the idea is that we really want to pare it down to, what is the signal that's required, and then eliminate all the other energy that's not helpful. And since I've been doing the work at NASA, I've reduced 99.8% of the signal that wasn't, that turned out not to be helpful, retaining only that 0.2% that's actually sending the signal that you want. And that's why we're able to take something that would have been a $30,000 device the size of a microwave oven that you have to plug into the wall, and I've been able to reduce it down to something the size fits in the palm of your hand, and it's only about $400. So that's the advantage now, and we've been testing it. We test it all the time, and we just find that as we remove extra energy that doesn't need to be in there, the signal that's there is more effective because there's less background noise. So that kind of plays into this whole issue we talked about before, which is signal-to-noise ratio, right? If you're removing noise and you're keeping the signal, by definition, you're improving the signal-to-noise ratio. And that means that you can have a quiet signal that's loud and clear. You don't have to pump a lot of, superfluous energy in there. And that's really the whole, guiding principle of the design as I've been working on it for the last 2 decades.
You made it very elegant. In other words, it's small, it's portable, it's just the right signal strength. It's almost like what I call the Goldilocks level of signal.
It really is. It really is. There's a threshold, and if you go below it, it doesn't work. And then there's another threshold where if you go above it, it just causes discomfort.
Right.
And there really is a zone in there. It's just like speaking, right, to somebody. There's a range of volume in which you can get a very clear signal. If it's too low, you can't hear it. If it's too high, it's painful. It's just the same. So I've spent a lot of time zeroing in on exactly what that range is, and I cover that whole range with 4 settings that you can select, low, medium, high, or extra high on the device, depending on, your personal needs and your personal biological receptiveness. But other than that, everything's optimized. You don't have to fiddle around wondering what frequency to use or what waveform or anything else. That's all been optimized for you, and I've removed all the superfluous signal that doesn't do anything.
Right. So it's the analogy would be having your loved one whisper to the opposite sides of the stadium they love you, but you can't hear them because they're too far away, or standing beside you with a bullhorn at 150 decibels saying they love you, and it's so painful you tell them to turn it off.
That's right.
There's a medium in between where you get
have just the right amount of volume with no background noise, and that's when you get the clearest signal with the least amount of acoustic energy. And that's exactly analogous to what we're doing with ISIS, only it's electromagnetic energy, and it's sending a signal telling the cells, calm down, everything's good, go ahead grow, go ahead build, go ahead turn off your defense mechanisms and your inflammation, and do what you would normally do if you were healthy, growing and repairing yourself.
I found a very simple
signal that corresponds to that.
I found a very simple way of actually measuring what you do in one simple test with a scanning electron microscope in a live sample. It's to look at what's called the neuropore opening threshold. And if you look at the neuropores, which are basically the transition pores where there's active transport of large molecules across cell membranes, that neuropore would open only with the right signal. If it's too strong or too weak, it doesn't signal and open it up. Too strong, it actually gets a stress response. The neuropore closes to response. So if you did a scanning EM of, let's say, a joint space or synovial membrane, or a neural sleeve of, let's say, an oligodendrocyte laying down myelin sheath, or the blood-brain barrier, what you'd find is that the neuropores opened with the right signal and they closed with either too little or too strong a signal.
That's right. There's a band in the middle. That's the Goldilocks zone, and that's what works. And that's what I've been working toward for the last 20 years, and that's what we have now. And the benefits of doing it that way are that you don't have to pay for anything extra. So you don't use extra power. You don't have to, you're not paying for anything more. You're getting exactly what you need. That's why the cost is lower, the size is lower, the power requirements are small enough that it's portable. Exactly.
It depends. If you go right to the top of Nutrimedical on the right-hand side, you'll see the link to MicroPulse. Get one today. It's amazing. Important because of the strange weather. The red deer were up high in the mountains, but by the way, they have now had their haircuts. And the red deer velvet is on its way. It's actually should be here next week. For all those people are looking in the mirror and they're saying that's like a Disney song, saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, am I wrinkling now that I haven't had my mountain red velvet for a month?" And the mirror says back, don't worry, I got a DHL or FedEx certificate that says it shall be here next week. And don't worry, if you wrinkle, this will reverse your wrinkles away.
Exactly. And so our apologies for that, but nature is what it is, and because we work with our boys, that we're now ready, that has just delayed us that little bit, but it is winging its way to you as we speak. It's just hugely in demand at the moment, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. Now, any new news about what we're doing now? Of course, we're working on trying to make DR cap versions of the Mountain Red Velvet that will have an exclusive here in North America. I'm also, once we get that project out of the way, I want to actually try to get some surgical companies to make a surgical version of the Mountain Red Velvet for surgeons to implant as strips and as powder in surgical wounds and even intravenously to rebuild organs. Because if you want to infuse an organ to try to regenerate it, you have to have the proper signal, the proper transducer, and the proper substance. You need the building blocks, you need the extracellular matrix, which is the Mountain Red Velvet, and the body, once it gets down to the terminal ion, we can turn it into a micelle and then deliver these very fragile molecules that otherwise might be destroyed by your stomach. So when I take my Mountain Red Velvet, and I still have a few sequestered bottles that I have with me, one I'm just shaking now on my desk, believe it or not, I still have some. I open the capsule and put it under my tongue, and I can feel it almost like building my body. Body says, high five, Deagle. Thanks a lot. I can rebuild your liver, your brain, your kidneys, and you won't age a day today. Today you're not going to age. How's that? In fact, it should be in the bottle. Take me today and don't age, just like Alice in Wonderland. You know, eat me and grow big, eat me and grow small. How about eat me and not age?
Oh, that's it. And that's what we hear from people is, gee, it's like turning back time. It's like putting the oil back in my joints. I feel so much better. And if we work through that process, the reason that it is doing that and it's making everybody feel so much better is because it is healing the body. It's not masking pain. It's not masking the effects of that sore joint. It is putting the nutrients back into the body that heal those injuries, and they may have been around a long time. The stiffness in those joints, it does heal the body. It gives you energy. It helps you sleep. And everybody knows when you get some sleep that's pain-free, the body is able to heal and, you, as you say, build a better you by taking Mountain Red Velvet.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, isn't it? It's what I think is one of the most remarkable things. Now, just to give you a little side news, I talked yesterday to my colleague Michael Chen and his colleague Dr. Wong, who are now coming back from India and their research there and setting up new clinics using the Manotron and the ATLRIS. And he'll be coming out in the next few weeks from China because we're working on with the Russian Space Agency and Dr. Nemtsov on the latest generation of the what's called the seeker and diagnostic and treatment functions of the Metatron and the ATLRIS device. And of course, we have people that purchase them. I can literally log on to their ATLRIS and actually, besides them sending me the compressed file and their wellness medical history, which we now have a new form, I can actually go through sections of their body with the ATLRIS and do a diagnostic screen through any body tissue and tell you exactly what's going on in their different organs, like an MRI or CT, anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And the Metatron is even one step beyond that. It's just pretty amazing. It's a very, very fancy device, and we'll actually be marketing those as well. We'll need to train them, and of course I tell people if they get an ATLRIS, I have to be able to log on through TeamViewer 10. What this all means, though, is Mountain Red Velvet is one of the major pieces of the puzzle for the what I call the anti-aging puzzle. And I'll be presenting my paper, which I'm going to be probably completing most of it this weekend, for the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine that I'm going to present in December in Las Vegas. All the previous theories, including the Hayflick theory, the pre-radical theory, the mitochondrial theory, the telomere theory, these are all called epiphenomena. The primary phenomena is what's called signal-to-noise ratio, and when you have the extracellular matrix, is to say the point at which you're having maximum apoptosis in your tissues and destroying cells is actually when you're a fetus. And you'd say, well, that sounds funny. I think it would be when you're dying. No. The problem is when you're getting older, you don't have enough apoptosis getting rid of old damaged cells and replacing them with new ones. When you have ECM, extracellular matrix, your stem cells know what to differentiate into to create new heart cells. The old heart cells are damaged and destroyed by the body's immune system. They're digested, their organelles are destroyed, and they're recycled. And those materials are recycled into the new cells. What we need to realize is that if you can establish the conditions of a fetus, which is why you take Mountain Red Velvet, your body's stem cells, which migrate through your microcirculation, will say, hey, I know how to turn into a cardiomyocyte or a neurocyte for a brain cell. They used to tell me in medical school, if you residents party too much at Phi Rho or Phi Chi, you're going to be stupider by the time you graduate. And the fact is, if you have enough stem cells rebuilding your brain, you still will be smart even if you party a little bit. So just for all my medical buddies out there that were members of Phi Rho Sigma. So what people should understand is that most of the theories that they've been told in the past are actually either false or just plain lies, or the stupid assumptions of people who failed before to find the solution to the problem. My theory, which I'm going to present this year to the Academy, will actually explain what I call the latest theory and what aging is. And mountain red velvet is a major part of it. If you start taking mountain red velvet today, like I called remember that experiment they talk about, where they take the two twins, and one twin goes into space near the speed of light, and he comes back, and he's only aged like 3 or 4 years, and his brother's aged like 80 years, and he's now 100 years of age, and the other brother's like only 4 years older. Well, it's like that with mountain red velvet. If your ratio of healing and regeneration of tissues and your repair process is so much superior in 5, 10, or 20 years, instead of you aging chronologically 20 years, you may age 2 or 3 years. And pretty soon we're going to actually get that down to where you don't age at all. They've actually done actuarial tables and predicted that if for every year you live now in 2015, you live an extra 3 months. In 10 years, if you live every year you live, you'll actually live an extra year. And pretty soon, I call it the terminal velocity, just like an aircraft, like the Wright brothers. You'll reach a point where, at some point in the future, whether it's 5, 10, or 20 years, where we will have enough combinations of technology, including morphogenic field therapy, like the Metatron with our morphogenic field therapy, which I'm developing with these scientists, extracellular matrix, our Nutrimeds, stem cells, including stem cell lines, growing your own stem cells, like we have even for cancer with the dendritic vaccines in Mexico and Tijuana, and the ISOS Clinic, BioCare, and the Oasis of Hope. We have now, with stem cell therapy, the big defect there is they didn't realize without extracellular matrix, you can't take a ghost organ like a sheep heart and infuse human stem cells and make it grow into a heart without the extracellular matrix. It's not just the collagen that makes up the heart muscle, it's all the other extracellular proteins, and there's 296 plus 6 growth hormones necessary to actually create the ECM to act as a transducer of the scalar biophotonic signals to actually turn on the genes to create the new organ differentiation.
Exactly.
So that's what's cool about this. So, believe it or not, a major part, if you start taking mountain red velvet today, your joints will say, my gosh, I had a lube job. Yeah. Your eyeballs will say, hey, I can see better. How come my glasses are getting improved? I had to go back to the optometrist because my glasses refraction is improving. That's not supposed to happen. How come my sexual function is still working? How come I can remember all my shopping list? Why is my hair turning back in color? What's going on?
If the IRS
the LUMEN PHOTON, and I have my little LUMEN PHOTON machine actually right now, actually, believe it or not, I can turn it on. It's right here at my desk, and I love this machine. It's amazing. There's no discomfort. It's not hot. It stimulates turning off pain and healing. It is amazing. It's portable. You can plug it into your car. You can have a small battery pack to run it. This is great for your pets. If you have a pet that has any problems whatsoever, whether it's chronic arthritis or pain, and again, if it works on them, it's not a placebo effect. It's an actual physical effect. If you put it over your kidneys, and let's say you've had decreased kidney function, you want to reduce blood pressure, you're trying to reduce C-reactive protein, it's actually in published studies that it'll reduce the C-reactive protein and improve nitric oxide metabolism, and improve your microcirculation throughout your body just by putting it over your low back. So this is an amazing device. We've also talked about last time, Ron, using it with our cellulite cream, which I'm going to post up this weekend, which is a formula, and you can literally burn off fat and cellulite in your body by just putting the pads over the problem areas. I call it Lumen infrared lipo sculpture. How's that?
Sounds great to me.
Infrared liposculpture. How's that?
Yeah, simple enough. Anything that it does so much, it does everything but talk just about. So.
Yeah, in fact, if we go head to toe, and let's go through some of the frequencies. There's 7 settings, and give us some of the key settings that you like to recommend to people. And if they call you, you'll give them some advice on how to use the machine properly. You've got a new device for setting frequencies now on it.
One of the things we get a lot of people say, "Oh, I hurt. I'm in pain for some reason." Well, that's simple. Number 7 is generally the best setting for pain management.
Right.
if they have sunburn, number 7, use that on that, and then come back next couple of days, start using number 4, which will bring the lymph functions and the circulation. That will bring more oxygen there. That will flush that stuff out and help it heal more rapidly. It's incredible for animals. We use a lot of on the horses and the dogs, and they get a little nick or something and they hurt. Like we can tell it right off the bat. We can use the pad on the areas where the meridians are and on the acupuncture points, but we got to put it actually on the sites as well. And
right.
It's very simple to use effectively. We use it for we use it for every time we go driving anywhere. My wife has to have 2 of them. She has a really bad degenerative disc in her low back area, so we usually travel with 2 of the inverters and 2 pads so that she can use it on her low back and also on her really bad knee. 1. So she's a Mensa caliber intellect, but she's just not physically capable to keep rolling around. But we've used it recently on one of our daughter's horse, which strained, looks like a ligament strain somewhere in there. But that shows up pretty quickly. That heals. Let's see, we've got my mother, who is 88 years old, is living in a private little home by herself these days, and it's one of those. She said, I'm still here. And she said, I'm still here. I could do this. She still drives a little bit. My daughter is there, and my sister usually goes with her when she drives to someplace, but she doesn't do much of that. But she's still very alert. She likes to cook. She still does that, which is amazing. So she uses it on her mind. We have her doing that. There are signs that she has some onset of dementia, but she's still doing everything that she wants to do. So those are crazy things that just don't make any sense in general. I mean, we were watching Maria Sharapova the other day. She's playing she's a big time tennis player, and her team. She had a rotator cuff injury several years ago, and she had to have rotator cuff surgery, which left her unable to serve at all because the adhesions had formed. And her team had gone to Russia, where she was a Russian woman. They went all over the world trying to find something that worked, and it was her personal trainer happened to have one of our lights, and he lent it to her. 3 days later, she ordered the big pad, started using that on her shoulder, and we thought we were going to get an endorsement, but we didn't realize that she had signed a $75 million endorsement contract. And those people contacted us and basically said they're going to stomp us. So it was still wonderful to know that it made that much of a difference for her, and she's sent other people to us at times. So let's see. Wow. Just about everything that you can think of. It's vision improvement, esthetician clinics use it for the wrinkles on the face, that sort of thing. It's always good to have more circulation to the extremity as we age. We need that. For younger people, you're out there doing all these wonderful, wild things. If you get banged up, just use the LUMEN. We have an all-purpose setting called the NICO setting. That covers the bases for almost every situation that if you're not even thinking about what you might do.
What's amazing to me is how universal this machine is. You know, if you got a horse that's got an injury, let's say they're a racehorse, or if you have a dog that's got arthritis, or you have yourself and you've strained lifting because you're doing CrossFit and you've injured yourself doing what I call stupid exercise. It's important to do real good exercise. I call VibraFit, which is going to be using G-force, using the vibrational cycle. That's a lot less traumatic, but it's going to have more stimulating effect. But when you have an injury, just from regular things, you're playing golf and you twist your ankle, or you're getting degenerative arthritis in your spine and you have osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, any inflammatory condition, and including, by the way, fighting cancer. Let's say you have cancer in your liver or over an area. When you're taking your alternative therapies and you're going to a clinic in Mexico and you're taking all of our Dr. Bill Nutrimeds, You want to put the lumen photon over the target organ. Let's say you've got chronic lung disease, or you've got congestive heart failure, or you've got retinopathy, or you're going blind because you've got cataracts, you've got a traumatic brain injury. It doesn't matter what the health condition is. The light therapy is going to speed up and amplify and extend the healing process further, so you'll get faster healing, more complete healing, and better healing when you use lumen photon. That's how neat it is. And the device, by the way, you don't have to buy extra pads for stuff that's used up. You just have to take care of the pads so you don't kind of pull the wires on it and whatever. But the device is just literally, how many hours do you get out of the LEDs? Was it 20,000 or 100,000 hours? Something ridiculous?
100,000 hours. Yeah, that's what they say. 100,000 hours of, but they say we really don't know. We know 100,000. We do that, but more beyond that, we just know it seems to keep. Well,
100,000 hours is probably more than you're going to do for you and your whole family for your lifetime.
Yeah, that's right.
So the only thing you have to put in is a very small amount of electricity, and you're all set. Just take care of the machine.
Very minimal. It runs off of the tiniest batteries, but it's very
in fact,
all this. So.
Yeah, no, I know that the setup is plugged in, but you can actually run it off a little interface too. Do you have a little interface so you can run it off, let's say, a USB port or something like that?
Yes. Yep.
You do?
Yeah, no, we don't, but we've heard of that.
Right, then you can just run it off a USB battery, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It really takes very little output to run this. That was one of the things early on.
It's very elegant, though. It'll cover through a whole foot of tissue. Abdominal wall, muscle, bone, guts, blood vessels, nerves, spinal cord. I mean, everything. It's amazing. If you put them on your temples or on the front and back of your head or over your eyes, if you're trying to get rid of sinus infections, or let's say you've got cavitations and we call pockets around your gums and you've had dental surgery. Well, for example, my dentist is Dr. Jeffrey Kerbs, Kerbs in Escondido, one of the top 3 dentists in this part of the United States. He's both a certified IEOMT doctor and the top cosmetic dentist in this area. They use laser and ozone therapy, but afterward, you want lumen photon. You're going to speed your healing and get much more healing if you use lumen photon over your gums and teeth.
Light is energy. There's no mass. It's just all energy.
It is. It's amazing. It's remarkable. Back, and we have Dave and Jean Mitchell, and of course Dave, the wizard of prepping, and his dear and extremely funny and entertaining wife, Jean. They're quite a team, I'll tell you. They really are amazing. And Dave and Jean, of course, got our home in our studios here in Southern California. Dave is a super prepper along with Jean, and they have a home in Alpine, which basically is pretty, self-sustaining. You have gravity water storage areas. You've got your own chickens. You're growing vegetables and fruit. You've got a greenhouse. You're ready. You're ready for what's going to happen. According to Richard Allen Miller, mentioned this the first hour. The grid's going. People need to know it's a tar paper shack in terms of its engineering design, and you don't have to postulate conspiracy theories to realize that even a year and a half ago, when they did a test of the power grid here in California, they found that the power grid would not survive even the implementation of putting solar power and wind generators on the grid. The grid's not going to make it. Period. It's on life support now, and whether it's forest fires or just power surges caused by the regular implementation of laws already passed to make 20% of power generated by individuals dumping it onto the grid's not going to survive. And you need to realize if you can generate your own power, if you're ready for prepping, and the grid, if it does go down, you can lose equipment that could be weeks or months before they're replaced because they have to order it from China, and the average wait period is 6 months to a year to receive the step-down transformers that are primary things that'll blow if the grid goes haywire. So, Dave, let's talk about realty. Number one, you want to be in a place where you're upwind of any nuclear reactors, meaning you don't want to live in Arizona, the New Madrid fault system, or the east coast of the United States. You want to live on the west coast, to be honest with you. You want to live in a place where you have enough water to grow food and you can protect yourself. And when you can actually be far enough away from a large populated area, you can be relatively safe. And, of course, it means large enough space not only to get out of the big cities at least. I call step one, which is what I have now. We're living in a home outside of Vista, California in the mountains. Step two is a community where you have a couple hundred acres and you have maybe 100 or 60 families. So you have a full range of skill sets. So if civilization does collapse, and it doesn't take a lot for it to collapse, to be honest. In economic chaos, a war, a near space object, the going off of major volcanic activity around the world, the Nutrimedical fault system blowing, in nuclear reactors in the southeast United States, the Cumbre Viejo going, or the Middle Eastern war just exploding, and the spread of super plagues. There's so many reasons for Armageddon of one form or another. It's just a matter of time before something causes civilization as it is to be a Jenga game where someone pulls the last stick. So, Dave and Jean, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Dr. Bill.
Yay, Dr. Bill.
So it's good to have you, Jean, as well. And Dave, I want you to tell people what you can do realty-wise for them, because you're a realtor broker. You can help people get out of the big cities now. You can help get them to here to Southern California. I consider the best state. We call it the West Coast the best coast. You can get them, if you can't get them to California, you can get them to other parts of the country using work with other brokers. And you could also help them outside if they want to move to Ecuador or Vilcabamba, Ecuador, if they want to move to Patagonia, to, Uruguay or whatever. I tell people I personally want to be in America with like-minded people that speak the same language and have the same viewpoints and Christian viewpoints and geopolitical viewpoints about the future, and you're not in a country that could potentially be corrupt police and military. So I'd rather be here. And, even if you're trying to get people to get property in a country like Canada, Canada basically has a totalitarian regime, which I call, pseudo-communist, socialist. Although there's parts of it that might be worthwhile to move to, as I say, especially the west areas of Canada, British Columbia. But ideally, I tell people move here, move to California, get out of the big cities. Don't be living in L.A. Don't live in San Francisco, greater San Francisco area. Don't be living on the San Andreas fault line. Move. And by the way, these earthquakes don't propagate here. People think, oh, it's all bad. The Rock is coming out with this movie. Earthquakes don't propagate. If you're 10 to 20 miles away from a major fault line zone, you're not going to get destroyed. You just need to be away from it. You need to be able to be self-sufficient. True, isn't it?
One thing about all these properties I work with, they're all quite far from faults. In
Which is
fact,
good.
San Diego County, surprisingly enough, has not had earthquakes for 100 years.
Same way where we are. We're on a granite mountain, an old granite mountain, which is blue granite. And the fault lines are, 60 miles north of us. So, even if San Andreas went, it'll destroy the heck out of Los Angeles because they got a 6-foot upthrust zone running right through the central southern Los Angeles. But it won't affect us. So if you're in L.A., get the heck out. And if you're living in any big city on fault lines or downwind of a nuclear reactor, do not be downwind. Because those reactors, when Richard Allen Miller says, when these reactors go and lose their power, we just went over this last night on the Rents program and yesterday afternoon here with Chris Harris. It's only a matter of time before all of our post-geriatric nuclear reactors around the world are going pop, pop, pop like popcorn in a popper. They're going to go. Okay? And if you think Fukushima's bad, it's just a warning for the rest of the world in the nuclear industry. So what can you do for people, Dave and Jean? What can you do?
Well, depending upon what budget they're on, I can help them with almost anything. I've sold land for 40 years and homes.
Right. So what you've told me is you already have a number of properties you already have listed that have hundreds of acres are ideal for a prepper or a prepper community. So you could subdivide it and say, look, I've got 100 families here. We want to put down, say, $3,000 or $5,000. You already have the land, wells, even some buildings on it. You can start with that. And this is something actually I want to get involved with. So I want to be a part contributor to a community, but I don't want to buy the whole thing. I want to buy a piece of it so that other people say, yeah, we need to get enough people together. And if you had, let's say, 100 people that had X amount of dollars, you could probably have the ideal property and say, hey, I've got 50 or 100 families that want to have a community. They start kind of preparing now for, I call it the OMG day, It's the day when things go haywire and it's beyond 1 and 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 10 weeks. Things are so bad you have to leave your home, even if you're outside a city, and go to a kind of more remote community to kind of literally survive the collapse of civilization. Right?
That's right.
So,
over the years, I've helped people buy a lot of lots, especially where we live in the same subdivision.
Right.
And they've done housing just about every way you can imagine. Move trailers on property. built garages, and they built the whole house from there. One guy even built a shed and just kept building from there, even though he did it without permits. But I don't recommend that.
Oh, yeah, you want to get proper permits so you don't get in trouble. Gene, you've seen this, the genius of your hubby, Dave, kind of put together some pretty amazing deals and help people in novel and creative ways, whether they buy, let's say, a property and then take a manufactured home, put it on it, or a fifth wheel and then build a proper home. You've seen some pretty neat things that he's done. Can you give us some examples of some of the amazing things you two have done together that have helped people to, get out of the big city, get into a beautiful area, having some privacy, or literally building a prepper community, I call it?
Well, for instance, 20 years ago, we had some friends that needed a house, but they couldn't afford to build a house. They couldn't afford to, really buy a brand new house and whatnot. They wanted to move out here to the country where we are, and so they bought a move-on house from La Jolla. So that was pretty interesting to watch that happen for a family that probably would never been able to own a home. And so they kind of chopped the house up a little bit, and they hauled different pieces up this dirt road and way towards the back, and then they kind of glued it all back together, and they ended up living here for, I don't know, maybe about 4 years, and then they were able to sell that house and then go to Washington. They ended up moving there and buy another house. So that was great for first-time buyers, and it was pretty amazing just to watch that whole thing happen. And he's done that with quite a few people out here, just hauling houses up here and getting them on a piece of property, and making sure that they get a really good deal. And so for that situation, that was pretty interesting.
That's cool. Yeah, it's important to get into equity. In other words, to get into the home situations you're not paying rent. It's important to get out of the big cities. It's important to get upwind and start getting your prepper skills up, learning how to grow a garden, get ready to have chickens. Say if you aren't prepping, the day it happens, it'll be too late. If you're a year early, that's okay, or 5 years early, or 10 years early, but a day late, not good. If you want to get a hold of Dave and Gene, here's their number, 619-990-6050. 619-990-6050. Go to the Associates panel on Nutrimedical, and you'll see their link directly to their special website.